The springs on the trampoline suddenly detached and shot into the woman, pinning her firmly to a wooden door. Just moments earlier, the influencer mother had been live streaming a pinning her tail to a donkey challenge, but her son found it childish and turned to play on the trampoline instead. Unexpectedly, due to the trampoline's age, the rust-covered springs unhooked and launched, pinning his mother to the door.
Mom! 911, what's your emergency? My mom's pinned to the donkey!
Firefighters arrived quickly and found the springs had pierced the wood, covered in rust, virtually tetanus weapons. They immediately checked her condition. Eddie asked the woman to move her fingers, and she managed to do so with difficulty, indicating no tendon damage, just a small penetrating wound. The paramedic confirmed a miracle. Her vital signs were stable, the springs had missed her spine by millimeters, and both lungs had clear breath sounds, meaning no lung injury. She only needed wound treatment before transport to the hospital. Firefighters picked up a saw, initially planning to carry her out with the door, but the door was too wide for the ambulance. The captain improvised. The woman was placed on the fire truck's roof and transported that way.
Easy, guys. Easy. Watch the springs.
Good work.
Oh, Mom! I got your phone. Thank you, sweetie. I'm sorry. I treated you like a little kid. You were right. I'm just gonna go back to my soul-sucking job.
Mom, I don't think you should give up the blog.
To everyone's surprise, the live stream had remained on, and the audience count exploded.
You're gonna be internet famous!
We're gonna be rich! Oh, I am monetizing parenthood! Oh!
The man was grilling outdoors when a cloud of flower dust suddenly drifted over. The flame ignited the dust, and he burst into flames.
911, what's your emergency?
My brother's on fire!
Moments earlier, the family had been holding a baby gender reveal party. The woman, who already had 3 sons, was desperate for a daughter. Pressing the gender button would spray pink smoke for a girl, blue for a boy. As everyone counted down, the eldest son secretly hit the button, releasing a pink flower cloud. The mother cheered, convinced it was a girl, until the flower drifted toward the grill. When the starch met the open flame, the uncle erupted in fire. Thankfully, the brother-in-law acted quickly, rushing to push him into a pond. Though the rescue was timely, the uncle suffered second-degree burns. Thanks to such a great nephew, the uncle got a preview of cremation. As the ambulance departed and firefighters prepared to leave, a cry rang out. The woman was in labor. The shock of the day's events had triggered premature labor. Experienced from 3 previous births, she remained calm, only praying for a daughter. 2 minutes later, the baby was born.
Congratulations, it's a boy!
That's impossible. That cloud was pink. It was pink, man.
The mother looked defeated, while the 3 sons cheered with excitement. Due to her alarm constantly going off, a neighbor called the police. The policewoman watched the woman disarm the alarm and was about to leave when it triggered again. Years of police intuition made her suspicious. She checked the alarm log and found the trigger came from the downstairs bedroom. Cautiously, she entered the bedroom and found a freezer. She opened the freezer and sighed in relief, no body inside as she'd feared. Scanning the room, she noticed the alarm had been triggered by a loose contact. Just as she fixed the contact, faint knocking sounds came from inside the wall.
So tell me, where is your husband?
I've got movement.
What? He's still alive?
I mean, great.
Why don't you start by telling me how exactly your husband got behind that wall?
Ex-husband, or at least soon to be.
It turned out the woman was divorcing her husband, who had started taking all his personal property to avoid losing assets. Enraged, she tried to kill him and sealed him in the wall. Against all odds, the husband survived and kept pulling the alarm wire until help arrived. No need to divide assets now. The woman left with nothing but her belongings and will spend the rest of her life in prison. The mother was so preoccupied with her phone call that she failed to set the parking brake. As soon as she exited the car, it began rolling backward, and the child in the backseat shouted for help. By the time the mother reacted, it was already too late. She desperately tried to open the car door but couldn't. With no other options, she went to the back of the car and tried to stop it with her own strength, not realizing how dangerous this was. Shortly after, the firefighters received the alarm and quickly arrived at the scene. They were shocked by what they saw. The mother had actually used her body as a speed bump to save her child. It really lives up to that saying, women are weak by nature, but mothers become strong for their children. The firefighters first rescued the 2 children, but the mother was extremely worried at this moment because her husband was about to arrive. The firefighters were very confused by this. After checking, the woman's blood pressure and pulse were all normal. They lifted the car and successfully pulled the woman out from under it. But just as she was lifted onto a stretcher, her husband arrived. The woman pleaded with the captain not to let him near the children, but how could the firefighters stop him? At this moment, the woman finally revealed the reason.
He hits us! He hits me! We were trying to get away!
The man tried to prevaricate, but the captain simply didn't believe his words.
Ma'am, have you reported any incident of domestic abuse?
No. I've always been too afraid.
Because nothing ever happened.
As a result, the police officer had no choice but to hand the children over to this father. Seeing the man reveal a triumphant and sneaky smile, the captain came up with a plan.
Owen. Cap.
Dad.
Hulk smash.
I'm taking my kids with me.
Yeah, are you sure they are your kids? Because they don't bear much of a resemblance. It's got me thinking. When was the last time a wife-beating cuck like you actually...
This sentence directly enraged him, and the man fell right into the trap. Now the police officer finally had a reason to arrest him. Seeing the man being taken away, the woman expressed her gratitude to the captain. This series of actions also made all the team members respect him deeply.
You were about to unleash the rage monster on that dude.
I did. It just wasn't mine.
The rookie's comment of quiet scared the firefighters out of their wits.
No! Sorry, I just said it was...
Don't say it again!
Hold on. I don't know. Maybe if he says it a second time, it undoes the curse.
The last time someone said quiet, the team had 37 emergency calls during that shift. In any fire department, quiet is definitely a taboo word.
Who used the Q word?
A team member was about to answer when all of a sudden the alarm bell rang. They knew they were in for a rough day.
Jinxed.
Sure enough, the first emergency call was troublesome. A man had glued himself to a billboard. After quickly handling it, the firefighters returned to the fire station. Unexpectedly, just as they picked up their forks, the alarm rang again. They had to put their food back in the microwave and rush to the accident scene again. This time, it was to rescue a cat and a silly who got stuck in a tree while trying to save the cat. After the rescue, they sat down at the table again, but before the food was served, the alarm rang once more. A woman got stuck in a lion head costume. Just after the firefighters helped her get it off.
Oh, come on!
At least someone ate today.
When they got back to the fire station and quickly took out the food, they found it had been burned. The group's stomachs were growling. The captain was just about to order takeout when that annoying alarm rang yet again. A woman had an octopus clinging to her face. The firefighters put the octopus in water, and it finally slid off. After that, the alarm kept ringing nonstop. The firefighters could only take a quick sip of water and then rush to the next accident scene. After a whole day of continuous work, with only 10 seconds left until the end of their shift, that dreaded alarm rang again. After dealing with the last accident, the firefighters thought they could finally go home. But unexpectedly, a roadside utility pole fell on the fire truck, turning the truck into an electrified cage. They had to wait for their colleagues to come to the rescue. However, when their colleagues arrived, instead of rescuing them immediately, they took out their phones and started filming. Without a doubt, Team 118 was going to be the biggest laughingstock within the fire department this year. They really regretted not covering the rookie's mouth in time when he said, "Quiet."